How do I use movie and TV clips in my videos without getting a copyright strike? And how does Evan Carmichael build a whole channel using other people's clips but doesn't get demonetized? And how can you use copyrighted material in your videos legally? We're about to explain all of that and more, so sit tight. What's up, legends? I hope you are having an incredible day, and I'm hoping it's about to get even more incredible once you've watched this video. Because once you understand this concept and you're able to use other people's material in your videos, that can genuinely transform your content. But John, isn't the copyright system on YouTube broken? No, I actually don't think the copyright system on YouTube is quite as bad as most people make out. I'm not saying it's perfect, but the big problem is most people don't fully understand it and see the process through to completion, and that means they often don't get fair results, which is why you probably see a lot of people complaining about it. But we will get into all the details of that later in this video. The first thing we need to understand is two very important words that are going to completely transform how you think about copyrighted material. And those words are fair use. Now, fair use is not just a YouTube thing. Fair use is a legal doctrine that applies to copyright law. And it basically says that there are certain circumstances and situations where you are allowed to use other people's work and their copyrighted content in your own content. But to understand what those situations and circumstances are, there are 4 key points, and we're going to go through each of them right now. For simplicity, I'm going to try and translate the legal jargon of fair use into more practical and relatable terms we're all going to understand. And so, bearing that in mind, the first point about fair use is whether your use of the work is transformative. And what I mean by that is, are you changing the value or meaning of some way from the original work? Or are you just stealing it, essentially? So in a more practical real-world example, let's say you're watching an episode of one of your favorite TV shows. Since I use this on my own channel, let's look at Rick and Morty. You're watching an episode, you're thinking, this is a really good episode, I'm gonna post this on YouTube. And so you just rip the entire episode as a file, upload it to YouTube. That is definitely not fair use. You have not transformed it at all. That's piracy. And so that is not gonna go well. However, what I did in my video is that I took elements of Rick and Morty to construct a new narrative. It was a completely different work that was making a completely different point. It was an educational video using the original work, but to do something completely different. So just completely taking the work and reusing it is not okay, but taking it and transforming it to something new, changing the meaning, changing the value, changing what it is about, that normally would class as being transformative. Hopefully you're still with me here, because the second point of fair use is the amount of the copyrighted material you use in relation to the overall length of the copyrighted material. So again, putting that in our Rick and Morty example, when you're using a full episode, you are literally taking 100% of the work and using that. Just using a very small clip is actually a very tiny fraction of the whole work. And so that is normally much more justifiable as fair use. So it's a case of, when you're looking at using copyrighted material, are you trying to use the entire thing or a big chunk of it or the heart of what it's about? Or are you just taking a very small element of it? Because if you are, that's a high chance that it's going to fall under fair use. The third factor of fair use that they consider is the effect that you using the copyrighted material will have on the commercial success of the original copyrighted material. So if what you're doing with someone else's work is going to negatively affect them, it's going to potentially hurt their sales, stop people from buying it because they can just watch yours instead, then that is less likely to be fair use than if it doesn't remotely affect the commercial success of the original, then that's more likely to be fair use. And then the fourth and final factor of fair use, that's a lot of F's, is the nature of the copyrighted work. So a couple of things here. If it's something that's already been published, which almost certainly it will be if you're using it, that's more likely to be classed as fair use. If it's something that's factual, you know, for example, if you're taking something from a biography or something that's been published as fact, that definitely helps your case for fair use. And thirdly, if you're using it in kind of like an educational way, you're trying to present facts rather than just trying to purely profit from it, that's going to help your case for fair use as well. And let me now just take this opportunity to congratulate you, because the fact you're still here at this point and made it through all that legal stuff shows that your attention span is much better than most people. But the fact is, we have to cover those kind of boring points, because that is the heart of what fair use is, and once you understand that, that's how you can determine whether you can legally use other people's copyrighted material in your own work. Those are the key factors. But just as a very final point to summarize all of this with fair use, if we go back to that example I mentioned with that Rick and Morty video I posted that was exclusively using clips from the TV show Rick and Morty, now hopefully you can see why that falls under fair use and why just posting an entire episode of the show wouldn't. Because the video I did, not only was it transformational because it was changing the meaning of the original work, number two, it was only using a very small portion of the overall work. It wasn't using an entire episode, it was just little clips. Number three, it's not remotely affecting the commercial success of Rick and Morty. People aren't going to stop paying for Rick and Morty and stop watching the show just because of that video. If anything, it helps boost people watching the show. Maybe a couple of people discovered it from the video. In fact, I actually know one person who did. And number four, it was done with an educational intent, not purely just trying to profit from it. So that kind of covers all four of those fair use factors, so I'm pretty sure I'm in the clear there. But, and it is a big but now, just because you know you are in the clear for fair use doesn't mean that someone can't still copyright claim your video. And this brings us back to the beginning of this video where I was saying a lot of YouTubers complain the copyright system just doesn't work because even if it's fair use, they're still getting people trying to claim their video. And the reason for this is that some companies who own footage, like, production companies who own the rights to movies and TV shows, they're not spending time watching videos and going, oh, is this fair use? Does this hit these factors? They see a video on YouTube that is using their material and they just immediately claim it. What then happens is the YouTuber, the creator, has the option to say, no, actually that's fair use, I'm allowed to do that. What happens then if they do that is it goes back to the company that claimed it. And they can then do one of two things. They will either actually spend some time and watch the video and go, oh, my bad, sorry about that. Here you go, the video's live again, you can monetize it. Clearly this is fair use, our mistake. That very rarely happens. What normally happens, and this is just a guess, but I'm imagining that someone at the offices of that production company, they see that the YouTuber has rejected their claim and they just go, nope, not having that, not having that. We'll have the money for this video, thank you. We'll have control of this video. You're using our copyright. Because probably they don't even have time, or, well, they do have time, but they're not willing to go and actually watch the video to see if it is fair use. So it's just easier for them, for every appeal, just to reject every single one of them. And this is why people get so frustrated, because they're saying, clearly a real human hasn't reviewed this, or they'd see it was fair use. And then they go to YouTube and say, this isn't fair, you're letting the production company, the person who owns the copyright, decide if it's fair use or not. And of course they're biased. But there's a final stage in this appeal process, and this is the part that people don't do. And that final stage is that once you've appealed the initial claim, they've rejected it, you can then go back to them a final time, which is what most YouTubers don't do, and they then either have to put your video live again and concede defeat, and you get all the money from it, or they have to take you to court, which I know sounds terrifying. Obviously, you don't want to go to court over a YouTube video, but just think about this for a second. If you know your video is fair use, why on earth would they spend time, money, resources, get all that bad press for the sake of trying to take you to court over a YouTube video that clearly is fair use? Because these companies are going to have lawyers, and so before making a decision, like trying to file a lawsuit against you, the lawyers are going to look at it and they're going to know that fair use exists, and so they're going to immediately see that this is fair use. Unless you have literally broken fair use and violated those principles we just said, and you've uploaded a pirated version of it, there is no logical reason they would try and take it any further. And I know this option sounds scary, but I've done a lot of research on this, and the people who actually take it to that final stage, in every example I saw, the YouTuber won and they dropped the case. The YouTuber got the full money for the video is completely fine from then on. The problem is most people don't take that step because either they don't even realize about it, or more likely they see that scary thing saying that if you're lying and it isn't fair use, that you could go to court over this. But as long as it is fair use, as long as you have followed these guidelines and you understand them, I can't see any reason that there's gonna be an issue there. Now, of course, you need to do your own research so you feel comfortable with this and you actually understand fair use and know you're in the right. But if you are in the right, then there's not really anything to worry about by disputing it, because if it is clearly fair use, then that's allowed. Fair use is a legal doctrine that protects creators in this way. That's what it's there for. If that's all too much for you right now though, and you're just thinking, I want to stay away from all of this, then firstly I would say look into a bit more yourself, do a bit more research, because it's not as bad as it sounds. But number two, I would say that there are other things you can do. For example, you can reach out and get the copyright holder's permission in some cases if it's someone accessible. Number two is that you could use stock footage. There's free stock footage and stock footage you can buy to use extra B-roll and material in your videos. So rather than using film clips and TV shows, there is a lot of stock footage you can use that just copy and paste into your video to kind of add an extra element to it. So if you're just kind of looking for B-roll, there is a free and easy alternative that's available to you. There's sites like Pexels and Pixabay that kind of give you a huge library of footage to use. But seriously, I can't stress enough, I wouldn't be saying this stuff if I hadn't done thorough research on it. And you know that I clearly have, because I myself have videos on my channel that use fair use. And if I'd done all this research and concluded that there was a chance that I was actually going to get sued over this, then I wouldn't have put them up. But now I want to talk about Evan Carmichael, because if you've ever seen his channel before, you'll know he is very successful on YouTube with well over 2 million subscribers, and yet the majority of his videos are using material from other people. He often takes clips from entrepreneurs and successful people and kind of remixes these clips together to form like top 10 videos or best of videos. And so a huge amount of the content on his channel is content from other people. Now, hopefully you can remember back to the fair use principles we talked about earlier and realize that quite a few of them do actually apply to Evan Carmichael's channel, but there's kind of an extra element to it that I think isn't really talked about when it comes to copyright and fair use. And I'm gonna call it the how does this make me look factor. Catchy name, right? But just for a second, put yourself in the shoes of one of these successful people who Evan features on his channel. Let's say one day you wake up and there's a top 10 video on Evan Carmichael's channel with the top 10 lessons that you've given out. And you click on it and you realize, wow, he's literally taken content from my channel or from my website and remashed it into a top 10 compilation on his channel, and he's making the money from it now. But then, just think about this for a second. Would your reaction be that, right, I've got to get this taken down? Or would it actually be, this makes me look really good. I am being positioned here as an expert on a channel with millions of subscribers. Evan is talking about me extremely positively. He is literally saying I'm someone that people should learn from. Do I really want to take that down? I am losing absolutely nothing here, and I am potentially gaining some new fans and definitely building my credibility. And so my guess is that very few entrepreneurs or successful people who had a video pop up on Evan's channel would ever think, oh, I need to get that down. No, they'd be thinking, this is great. And so I actually think this kind of unwritten factor is something to hugely consider when you're thinking about using copyrighted material, because on the flip side, I've seen cases that 100% are blatantly fair use, but the person has been talking about another person in a very negative way, and they've been using their copyrighted material to make a very negative point about them, to kind of either shame them, embarrass them, to highlight something terrible about them, whatever it is. there's a very negative association to using their content. So it's the complete opposite of Evan, where he's kind of saying, look at this expert, all these great lessons. In examples where it's the reverse of that and someone is trying to tear someone down or use their own content against them to say something negative, that's when the problems arise. And so even if that person has done it in a way that's fair use, the person obviously who's being kind of attacked with this content is going to want to get that taken down, even if it is fair use. And so they are going to be fighting it all the way. So I think this is an interesting way to view it. Am I doing something positive for the creators of the original copyrighted material? Because if you are, it's not really in their best interests to try and claim against you anyway. There's no real reason for them to want to take it down. But on the flip side, if you're doing the opposite and you are trying to, say something negative about someone or a group of people, that's when the problems may come when it comes to trying to battle it out for copyright. So bear that in mind as well. Okay, so we've kind of covered a lot there. We've bounced around all these different elements of copyright and fair use, and right now you might just be a little bit overwhelmed by it all, but the bottom line is this: you 100% can use copyrighted material in your own YouTube videos, in your own social media content, but do a little bit more research first on fair use, just so you fully understand it. Bear in mind whether you're putting a positive or negative slant on that person or that copyrighted material, and then make an informed decision about whether you feel comfortable posting it. I'm willing to bet if you've followed the fair use principles and you've actually looked into this, you will be 100% fine. But the very final thing you might be wondering is the literal how do you use movie clips and TV clips in your videos? And there are a couple of options. Number one, there's a site called playphrase.me, which is a search engine where you can type in the phrase you're looking for and it will bring up some movies and TV shows that have that phrase in that you search. So it's kind of like Google, but you're just searching specifically within TV shows and movies. So if there's a quote you have in mind that you can picture in a TV show, or you just want to find a quote based on a certain word or something, you can just type that in on that website and it will bring you videos that are related, and you can save them, add them into your video using any video editing software. Because once you've downloaded the video of the copyrighted material using any editing software, you can just copy that video into your video and then you're good to go. The second option though, rather than using that site, is to use YouTube itself and find the material you want to use in a YouTube video, in an existing YouTube video, download that video, and then again, cut out the bit that you want. Cut out the scene or the clip or the quote that you want to use in your video. Because the reason I like this method in particular is that the fact is, if that copyrighted material is already on YouTube and it was uploaded by someone other than the official channel for that TV show or that movie, the chances are that that production company aren't taking down videos. Because if the copyrighted material is literally already on YouTube because someone else has uploaded it, by the sound of it, they're not looking for YouTubers that they can go after with copyright strikes. So you're probably gonna be okay using it if it's fair use without even getting a copyright strike, but you can't bank on that. But as long as you're using fair use, there shouldn't be an issue. So you can go to YouTube, search for the scene that you want to find, and download the YouTube video from there. So hopefully that's given you a couple of ideas about how you can do it. I'm sure you can get creative with your own methods as well. But if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll be happy to try and help out if I can. But just to finish here, I want to ask you a quick question. And that is, would you like to do YouTube full time? Like literally replace your job with YouTube? Because if the answer to that is yes, then it's actually a lot more achievable than you think. And I am living proof of this, that even with a relatively small amount of subscribers, you can build a business with YouTube. YouTube is an incredible platform and there are opportunities with it that most people just don't realize. Because most people are trying to be YouTubers, I'm saying become a YouTube magnate. big difference. And if you are interested in understanding what that difference is and how you yourself can make a full-time income with YouTube, then please go and check out the top link in the description of this video, because it is going to help you so much understand how you can do that. And I'm excited for you because honestly, people just don't understand the potential with YouTube. They're too busy trying to make money from ads when that is the wrong way to do it. So feel free to go and check that out, and I will see you next time. Cheers.